Thank you very, very much for flying all the way down here to beautiful New York. It is such a beautiful day that welcomes you to this beautiful studio that I love coming in here once in a while and welcoming my very exclusive guests like yourself.
Oh, thank you.
John, it is such a pleasure to be here with you today. And again, thank you very much for joining me. Let's go into all the little wonderful bullet points, what makes you unique and special, and why you do at your best excellent points that you do. So I would like to cover pretty much today everything that motivates John, everything that gets you out of bed,
That's easy.
everything that gets you excited to keep going. Just as we were getting prepared for this event today, I got to learn and to know you a little bit better, that apparently your father and your grandfather
Yes.
used to invest a lot in real estate in Florida.
Yeah.
And they are the ones that motivated you
Yes.
to pretty much jump into the game. I also understood very well that you pretty much were born in Pennsylvania, but
On a
you
farm. On a farm. believe it or
beautiful,
not.
and you moved to Florida when you were 16.
Yes.
And you also shared with me personal journey that when you turned 16, you didn't want to come back to
Never.
Pennsylvania. You
Nope.
enjoyed your lifestyle there, and pretty much Florida is your hometown.
Yes. First off, thank you so much for having me. This is, Olga and I are very good friends, so this is great that we can sit and chat like this. And this is a nice studio. Usually I'm not in one this nice, so I thank you so much for being here. And I thank you for the weather that's 55 degrees and sunny, different than it was the other day.
Thank you. Well, John, what exactly areas do you cover? What is your preferred areas? How far do you go? Because I know that some of my clients mention Florida, but Florida is so huge.
It
so
is.
let's educate our listeners.
Okay.
What is your area of coverage? Where exactly you master at?
Okay.
And let's talk about the lifestyle of Florida and what gets you going.
Okay. So being that I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I know Fort Lauderdale like the back of my hand. I've been there forever. But it's funny, if someone approaches me and they're like, what area do you cover? I could say that I could cover from Miami all the way up to Palm Beach. But a lot of times I more or less stay in Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, but I have a lot of agents in Miami that can assist my clients in that area. I have a unique advantage being that I grew up in South Florida. It was funny, I think I told you the other day that my grandfather came to Florida in 1958 and started buying real estate. I wasn't even born then.
Wow.
And then my dad sort of followed up his path and he started buying real estate. And probably back, I would say I was probably 10 years old, and my grandfather bought his first oceanfront condo. It was called Galt Ocean Towers. It was right on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, and it was the only condo on that beach. So now, when you look, there's condos all the way up and down either side. But at that time, it was the only condo, and there were big sand dunes on either end of the building.
Wow.
And I can remember as a kid running and playing, but that's totally different now. But it gives me a really unique perspective because I know those areas so well. I also cover Boca, and I also cover Palm Beach. I do a lot in Palm Beach right now, and that's just because there's a lot of demand from people from the Northeast, mainly New Yorkers, that want to be in that area.
Beautiful, beautiful. John, we just recently had a mutual experience where I had a client who
Yeah.
pretty much told me they're just going there on vacation.
Yeah.
And I kind of like follow my intuition a lot lately, especially.
Yeah.
And I called you right away and I asked you, John, what are you up to? And you said, hey, Olga, my day is full.
Yeah, I
And what did
remember
I tell you? I said to
You
you,
were like, drop your schedule.
drop everything now and you
Yeah.
have to meet with my clients.
Yeah.
And they really went there just to rent.
I
And
know.
they wanted to test the market in Florida. They wanted to really see if they would like it or not. But deep inside, we all knew that the wife specifically, she wanted Palm Beach no matter what.
Yeah.
They already were very conditioned that this is the area where they wanted to invest. And when I called you, you pretty much understood very clearly you got to move your schedule around. And I thank you so much for doing that.
No, thank you.
Because you cannot even imagine how much that means to me in order for us not to only help them find their dream home, but to be serviced truly by a professional who cares, appreciates, understands how to run this type of buyers.
Yes.
So, and I know your techniques and I know your style, but I want you to share with our audience right now.
Okay.
What do you do when you get a phone call? How do you start your process with them? What exactly makes them buy with you?
So what I found during COVID was that people wanted to be in Florida. We all know that, and it was kind of crazy. But most people that came to Florida came on vacation. Very rarely, unless you were retired, did you come here for 6 months. So what I found, whether it was Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Palm Beach, is that what most people know, they know the Palm Beach airport, they know the Breakers Hotel, which is a famous hotel on the ocean in Palm Beach, and they know like Worth Avenue. I'm just talking about Palm Beach specifically. But they really don't know anything about the area. They just know airplane, restaurants, hotel. So when I reached out to your client and they informed me that they wanted to rent something, I was like, absolutely, that's no problem. I can show you what rentals are. But at the same time, I'd like to show you what's available, because at that time, rents were so high that it almost didn't make sense to rent, especially if you're in a position to purchase. And the market wasn't going down, it was continuing to go up. So I moved my schedule around. It was the showings that I had was with a friend of mine. So I could have moved that around, and he understood. And so I met your clients. I gave him a call, and I said, look, do you know a lot about Palm Beach? A little bit, which they all do. And so I said, why don't we meet, Lisa and I, that's my wife, and your clients and his wife, and we sat and we just got to know each other at a restaurant. We talked about real estate, but we more or less talked about, I wanted to hear them. I could talk to myself all day long. That's not important. It's listening to what the client wants. And so we spent a good 2 hours having lunch together. And then I said, do you have any time? They were like, well, that's all we have is time because we're here for 2 days. So I'm like, why don't we jump in the car and let's drive around. And what I did was I took them all over Palm Beach. I showed them where the stores are. I showed them different areas. I showed them condos. I showed them new development. There's a lot of new development going on in Florida right now. I took them to different places like the Henry Flagler Museum. And we just rode around in the car and showed them. And I'll never forget, we went to drop them off back at the hotel they were staying at. And the husband was like, I've been looking at real estate for a long time. I've never met an agent in my whole life that didn't try to sell me a property the first day I met them. He goes, I really appreciate that. I want to come back down in 2 weeks. I don't want to rent. You're correct. I want to buy. And so we sent them listings, and 2 weeks later, they came back down. We went around and looked at different locations, and they found, so they didn't know if they wanted a house or a condo. And that happens often. So it worked out that they were able to purchase a house, but they also purchased a pre-construction condo, which was very unique because when the building's finished, they can decide whether they want to be in a building, because a lot of times New Yorkers, they're used to the buildings. They're used to the doormen. So that's what they kind of want. But it's funny. The client said that, oh, we want a building, want a building. When they got into the house, they're like, oh my God, I love it. And that's really what I'm all about. The most important thing for me, it's not about the money at all. It's about them being happy, them being excited. And the best call that I can get from a client is to thank me and how excited. And obviously, they're in the house right now.
Yes.
They love it. And to me, that just gives me a thrill to get a client to get excited. And that's the biggest part of why I do my job on it. Like I said, the money's good. That's part of it. But no, it's
money
about people.
follows.
It's about people. Yeah. In Think and Grow Rich, it says that if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And
exactly.
I sort of live that philosophy.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, John, tell me, I know that you surprised me and you really got me very, very, you got me so shocked when you told me that not only you dedicated so much time with them, not only that you helped them find their dream home, but you also help them both figure out the right purchase.
Yeah.
Market could be very tricky, and having the right professional by our client's side is the most important factor.
For sure.
And for me personally, I pick and choose very carefully who do I want to have behind me representing my clients.
Yeah.
And this is really, really important. So talking about the real estate market in Florida, what do you feel, in which direction are we going at the moment? I know that New York probably is performing in so much different level than Florida at the moment. And I feel like maybe Florida's clients are a little bit more cash type of buyers because they are pretty much retiring, coming out of New York. Most of them pretty much, it's either a second home for them. But also at the same time, we noticed and witnessed, even until now, that a lot of younger generations started moving to Florida and raising and building their families there, and also putting their kids through school, and also just enjoying a different lifestyle. But let's keep right now focused on the market. How do you think the market has performed in the past 2 years during COVID, and how is the market performing now? And what are you projecting going forward?
Okay. So to answer the first part, before COVID, people were coming to Florida. Like there's this misconception that COVID like put this big push on. Now it accelerated it. But before that, we were still working with mainly people from the Northeast that wanted to move to Florida. A lot of the reasons were taxes. They wanted to move to Florida because of these taxes in New York, and that we just have a state tax. And so they all wanted to move to Florida. So we were busy already before that. And what happened is Florida real estate really was undervalued. When go back before COVID and look at prices in New York and Manhattan, and look at prices out in Los Angeles and California, Florida was nowhere near those prices. And so what happened is people started to discover it more and more and buy.
Florida is more affordable.
Yeah. And then the other thing is people were like, oh, prices are going up. But in my mind, it's like, no, they're really not going up. They're going where they should be, because if you compared New York and California, I'm giving you two extremes, but they were way, way, way more expensive. Well, when COVID hit, that just put the pedal to the metal. And it was crazy. If you remember, we were at Summit, which is a Douglas Elliman event. It's phenomenal. All of us as agents get together, and we'll speak about Elliman and the power of that company. And I got back home, and my wife's like, they're locking us down. Lockdown? I don't even know what that was. And the first thought in my mind is, oh my gosh, how is this going to affect real estate? I'm thinking, honestly, I remember telling Lisa, this is going to last 2 weeks at the most. Wow.
That's what we thought.
And it was so funny. If I would have never believed, if you would have whispered in my ear, hey, this is going to just drive tons of people. It didn't seem that way. It seemed like everybody was uncertain, and everyone had that feeling of uncertainty. I know I did. But wow, like 2 or 3 weeks later, our phone just rang off the hook. And most of my business, as you know, comes from referrals from agents outside of Florida. And it changed everything. And it was like we were talking about this yesterday, but during COVID, you would go to an open house. I'm not exaggerating. There would be 50 cars lined up all the way down the street. And everybody wanted to get a place. Nobody wanted anything to fix up. Nobody wanted to fix up. And everybody from New York, at least the bulk of them, they wanted houses. They didn't want condos. They wanted a house with a yard. And that's because we were locked up and they wanted to be outside and play. But what happened is they realized everybody wanted something. So you had to be different. So as we spoke, we were making offers, no inspection. People were buying FaceTime on a phone. No mortgage contingency. It had to be cash. And it really was stressful. I mean, we got through it, and we understood where Lisa and I are very empathetic, very important quality to have in our business, in that, hey, this was a big deal for these guys. They're buying something sight unseen. And so we were working literally 24/7. But we were able to get those deals done because we had the knowledge and the wisdom to know that sometimes the client would be like, I want an inspection and I want to get this. And we had to explain to them that if you do that, the goal is to get the house. You're not getting the house under those circumstances. And so we really guided through that, a lot of hand-holding going through it. But in all that chaos, it really went pretty smoothly. Like deals were happening and deals were going through. And again, what happened was then they started coming, and what do you think they did? They told their friends, oh my God, I love it. And then it's continuing right now.
So you got a lot of referrals.
Lots and lots of referrals.
So how's the market performing at the moment right now?
So I get asked this 100 times a day. So you have to look at the market as different price categories. So if you go from 750 to, let's say, $1 million or $1.5 million, a lot of those purchases are mortgages. And so with interest rates going up, what it's done is it's kind of slowed them down a little bit. And so that market, is it going down? I wouldn't say it's going down. I would say it's leveling off. And if you see it going down, then that was probably someone who's trying to sell their property and it was overpriced. They're trying to get the numbers that people were getting at COVID when you would get a frenzy and 20
Correct.
offers. So, and I predicted this, that a lot of those guys were going to think, oh, but they were a little too late. So now what you're seeing, the prices coming down are just people that are overpriced. Overall, the market is pretty
leveling off.
Now, when you go to the higher price point, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's not cooling off whatsoever. That market is still going up, and it's still very strong. And in Palm Beach, I will tell you right now that I had a client, a referral from New York, wanted to be in Palm Beach, lives in the Hamptons, has a place in New York, and he said, John, we've done business before. He says, all my friends are coming to Palm Beach, and I'm bored. I want to come to Palm Beach. And he's a very savvy, very successful man. And when we got there, he's like, I want to get a deal. And I said, there's no such thing as a deal right now. And it's pretty much at full ask or you're not going to get the property. And we went for about 10 days looking at different properties, and he ended up purchasing a 2-bedroom on the water, on the Intercoastal, in an older building, needed a little bit of work, but that's what he had to do to get down there. And again, same thing I told you that my main goal is, he called me like 2 days later and was like, I have to thank you. He goes, I just thank you so much for the time invested. And
yes.
And he goes, and it literally, again, music to my ears.
Right.
He's like, I'm so happy and I'm just so excited about this. So if you ask me what the market's doing, the market's stable. I really don't see the market coming off a lot, and I'll explain to you why. It's inventory.
Right.
Everyone's minds go back to 06, 08. This is not 06, 08. 06, 08 was flooded with inventory. It's not that way right now. And the other thing is quality inventory. There's not a lot of it out there, and yet the buyers still continue to come. So I feel very strongly about the market will stay level or continue to go higher right now.
So you're definitely
that was a long answer.
So you're definitely predicting that real estate will continue to go up because of inventory shortage.
Yes, and because of demand. Again, I tell my clients, I don't know the future. Like if something happened, maybe the economy went a little bit lower. But when I was younger, my dad and my grandfather was so intelligent. He came here from Italy, had nothing, ended up building this big business, retired early, got into real estate. And he would tell us about Florida. He's like, they're not making any more Florida. It's not like you can stretch it like a pizza and make it bigger. And he used to tell us, always go towards east and towards the water. And my dad even said that Florida's such, I remember the recession in the 70s. I've gone through so many of them. I'm 60. But my dad would say that, yeah, the market might come down a little bit in Florida, but not like the rest of the country. It's a very unique spot. Our tax situation, our weather, our beaches. And so I think that it'll remain that way. And I'm really excited about the future for South Florida.
Beautiful. Well, John, thank you very much for joining me today.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I could keep going, as you know.
It's been a pleasure having you here today. We will definitely continue.
Okay, sounds
and
good.
We will definitely talk about the lifestyle in Florida. Stay tuned, everybody.
Sounds good. Thank you.